Hey guys, Chris here with the Good Old Gamer. So it's safe to say most of the TechTube community and reviewers and stuff are mostly amped for AMD products. At CES this year, they pretty much stole the show because, well, Nvidia didn't show up and, well, Intel probably shouldn't have. That's not to say that those companies aren't going to have explosive second halves of 2020. It just means nothing's going to really be happening for either of them anytime soon. But with that being said, and AMD dominating the coverage out there, that does kind of make this video seem a little bit strange, especially considering I've been a strong advocate for the smaller company. I've always been a big fan of competition because I saw the whole Navi pricing thing coming a mile away. Back in 2016, I started warning you guys that if you keep supporting Nvidia and their ever-rising prices, AMD will raise prices as well. It's just the way that it's going to go. And with the launch of Navi, that happened. Now, as a business or from a business perspective, it makes sense for AMD to price their products right in line with their competition. A little bit cheaper, so this way they always have the value argument. They offer a little bit more for a little bit less. That makes sense from a business perspective, but the old way of doing things where they would massively outperform their competition is clearly not what they're going to be doing anymore. Now, why is this important? Well, for me, this pretty much puts AMD and Nvidia on a level playing field. You can blame Nvidia for raising the prices in the first place, but you can also blame AMD for just playing the game. There's really no blame to be had for either company. The blame actually falls on us as the customer base. It just kind of is what it is, and last year I've already accepted all of this. Now for me, this has kind of changed the way that I look at things. So over the Christmas season, I sold off a few of my computers because I've had a computer in pretty much every room of the house for a while now. But most of the PCs, they just don't get used. I don't use the PC in the living room that often. The ones downstairs and in the bedroom hardly ever got used. So I'm like, well, why don't I just sell these off and we can get some more Christmas presents? Made sense to me. So sold those off, and I was surprised how fast these computers sold off. So it was actually very easy for me to break even or even turn a profit on some of these PCs that I bought with, secondhand parts. And I just picked up a few more parts to put together a few more systems. And I was looking at my RX 580 and I was like, you know what? This would be good to sell off, but what would I replace this with? And a lot of you guys would be like, oh, well, you can get like a 5700 XT. That's a lot faster. I don't actually need more performance. The RX 580 is fine. It's more of a feature thing that I need. And this is where the thumbnail and the title really come from. And what I mean by that is every feature that AMD has, for the most part, all the big stuff, NVIDIA has. However, all the stuff an NVIDIA card can do, AMD cannot. There are certain things that AMD cards are just inferior at. Now, back in the Pascal and Polaris days, you could clearly see that AMD cards, even if they were performing worse at the time, you could definitely see that DirectX 12 and future APIs, those cards were going to jump ahead in performance. You could see the fine wine being baked in, but ever since Turing launched, NVIDIA's cards can perform very well in those low-level APIs, just as well as AMD, and sometimes even better. I believe it's Strange Brigade. AMD was way out ahead, and nowadays I think Turing is the fastest way to play that, and that's Vulkan and DirectX 12 title. So clearly, as far as like APIs go and feature-wise, on that front, they're pretty much the same. The one big thing for me to replace my RX 580 is OpenGL. And I've brought this up before on the channel. AMD's OpenGL performance in Windows is pretty abysmal. And a lot of you guys will be like, well, what are you using OpenGL for? Well, first off, all games that use OpenGL. There's a lot of source ports, so for older games, to run them on modern operating systems with modern graphics, most of those use OpenGL. And then emulators. Emulators typically run best with OpenGL, even if they have other renderers. For example, CMU just started supporting Vulkan, but it's still better on an NVIDIA card with OpenGL. Just is. PCSX2 has DirectX 9 and DirectX 11. Some games do not work with DirectX. OpenGL, everything works. Now, you can use OpenGL on AMD cards, but the performance is pretty bad. I was using PCSX2, and my RX 580 could not emulate GTA 3. Now, granted, that's with a 3 times the resolution scale, so it is bumping it up to like 1080p, but that's not a lot. And it's not so much that the GPU is being taxed, it's something to do with the drivers. AMD has gotten better with this. They're somewhat competent in older games, games from like the early 2000s. Return to Castle Wolfenstein, for example, is an OpenGL title, and it can handle those things just fine. That'll hit the frame rate limit and work okay. However, newer OpenGL titles like Wolfenstein: The New Order, however, still do not run without massive tweaking on AMD hardware. And it's really gotten to the point where, since I sold off all those computers, I decided I want to start streaming, just using the old Steam links that I have laying around and just going that route. For me, the image quality difference, I can't tell when I'm sitting on the couch. So this allows me to have one PC essentially sit as a server, and then if I do want to play games in the other rooms, all I have to do is just sync up a controller and I'm good to go. This is a much more cost-effective option for me. So looking at this situation where I need one PC to do everything, I can't compromise on feature set. I don't want to be sitting there tweaking graphics on a per game basis to get the maximum performance. So this has actually led me to go ahead and replace my RX 580, which I'll be selling off for basically $130. So I picked up a GTX 1650 Super for $160. So I'm spending an extra $30 to lose half my VRAM, but it will go ahead and give me better performance in all the OpenGL titles and software that I need it to. So that's a huge benefit right there. But the other reason why I got this is because of the new NVIDIA encoding. Now, doing in-home streaming, encoding quality is really important. It's just like doing live streaming, except at much higher bit rates. With Steam, there's actually a very funny balancing act to get maximum performance out of doing the in-home streaming, and I might do a video on that if you guys go ahead and comment in the comment section that that's something you're interested in, because I've been doing a ton of testing on this, and just the short version is I found for the Steam Link, 1080p, beautiful settings, with a 30 megabit cap seems to give the best balance between latency and image quality. And this is using both a GTX 1070 and an RX 580. Image quality, I couldn't tell the difference between the two of those. They're both pretty good. Now, with the new Turing architecture and its better encoding, I'm hoping that'll bump up the image quality a little bit higher, because right now it's already good enough, but if you can just get it a little bit better, it'll be almost indistinguishable from playing natively. And if I can get to that level, that's great. Instead of having 5 computers in my house, I only really need the one, and that's a huge savings for me personally. The other big benefit going to the 1650 Super, even though performance is roughly the same, I'll have to lower down some texture settings due to the lower VRAM, which once again, that's not really a bother to me personally, but the power savings is going to be rather substantial. Considering the room is closed off, lower heat production, less power draw, that is always a good thing. So there are a lot of benefits there, and like I said, it's only $30 more. The big problem was there really wasn't anything else that I would be interested in. If there was like a $230 or $250 card that was significantly faster, I know somebody's gonna say 1660 Super, which I thought about it, but we're talking about 50% more money for 10 to 20% more performance. It just isn't good enough. If we were getting RTX 2060 level performance for 240-ish, I probably would have went that route instead. And that just goes to show where the market is here today, where the only card that I consider viable, a new card anyway, because I need the latest technology for that better streaming capabilities, is the cheapest thing that NVIDIA's got. And honestly, compared to the cheapest thing that AMD has out on the market, it's actually a decent value because it performs the same as the 5500 XT, except I think it's like $10 cheaper. This is the world that we live in 2019, 2020. This is really strange because 3 years ago when I started this channel, I could not recommend NVIDIA because of all the shenanigans that they were pulling and all of the really great moves that AMD were trying to make work. For example, HBM class GPUs at affordable prices. Granted, for the company, that was a terrible idea. Coming out with Vega sub $1,000 made no sense at any point ever. They should have never done that. Any card with HBM should never be under $1,000. But they did it twice. They did it obviously with the first Vega and then with the Radeon 7, which is just really crazy because they wanted to go ahead and show gamers that they're trying. And then when they finally got the architecture going with Navi, and they could really do it at affordable prices, they said, nah, we're going for the money. So just like every other company out there, AMD's now in a good position. They're definitely doing well on the CPU side, and they're comfortable. They're getting comfortable with themselves, and what that means is they're not going to fight for your business anymore. So they're not going to deliver that crazy good value. So I can't overlook the fact that NVIDIA offers features that AMD doesn't, and it's really kind of weird that, 3-4 years later, I guess it's almost 4 years later, I'm completely flipped on my head. Not only is the NVIDIA card the better value, because it costs less and performs the same, it has more features. It does more. It's crazy. So I just want to do this video because this has kind of been like an internal struggle with me. I've really liked my RX 580. It just can't do everything that I want, unfortunately. So I have to go with an NVIDIA card. I use OpenGL more than I use any DirectX version. I play more emulated games and older games with source ports than I do newer titles. That's just the way that I game. That's what I prefer. So for me, I'm pretty much backed into this corner. And I figured I'd make this video for you guys if you're kind of in that same boat, if you play mostly older titles, and this might help you out if you're like, I don't know what to buy. So to wrap this up, AMD, get your OpenGL drivers up to snuff. If your cards can't run OpenGL for whatever reason, that's a lie because they run fine in Linux. Go ahead and look at the Linux drivers and steal whatever you need to steal from that and bring it over to Windows. Do whatever it takes because this is a big deal, especially for older gamers, gamers with money. I'm in my 30s, heading towards my 40s. Prime earning years. People in my category are the ones that spend thousands of dollars on graphics cards, but we're also the people that want to play 20-year-old games. So if you want to make the most money, you want to make my category the happiest because we can afford 2080 Ti's and so on and so forth. OpenGL is necessary, and you have to have OpenGL performance greater than or equal to your other API performance, and this needs to be across the board. Otherwise, you're just going to keep losing my segment of the market. It's your call. And if you guys are interested in in-home streaming, if you are like me, you're older, you have a house, you have many rooms, you want to game in any room in your house at any time because, well, yeah, it's your house. Well, might as well. It's not that complicated to get set up. If you played with Steam in-home streaming, that's definitely the easiest way to do it. There are other things that I want to look into, like virtual PCs. I think that'd be really cool use for Threadripper. Like Steve from Gamers Nexus was talking with PC World, and they're like, what do you need 64 cores for? Well, you can make 8 virtual PCs with 8 discrete graphics cards. Somehow, I don't know if you could fit that in a regular case, might need to modify, but if you could have 8 virtual PCs running with dedicated hardware, to me, that's one really strong use case. I've seen how to set that up. I've never messed with that before, but I think that would be really cool. Instead of doing like streaming per se, you have your own dedicated hardware. I don't know which way would be better, but that to me is kind of a good use case for these really high core count Threadrippers. But let me know what you guys think. Do you like the idea of just having one mega computer in your house? Like this year, the reason why I'm going with the 1650 is I would rather wait for the 3000 series to invest real money. I'm not going to put any real money into any of the cards that are out there right now. But, if we can get 2080 Ti level performance on the next 70 class between $400 and $500, I might jump on that ship. So I want to wait till later this year. That's why I'm going cheap. But yeah, I'd rather build one big computer and have it be my media server and my game server throughout the entire house. And that's what I'm trying to do. Are you guys interested in that? I do a lot of testing pretty much almost every day here for the past couple of months. I haven't done videos on it because honestly, it's not going to be that interesting unless you're interested in that. And the only people that'll be interested in that are people that own homes and they want to set up their entire house. So I'm kind of curious how many of you guys fit that particular category. So let me know down in the comment section below. And if you like this video, please hit that like button, please subscribe, please share with friends. That really does help me out. And that's all I have for today. And I will catch you guys in the next video.